Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special episode of the Australian MMA podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Tinley, and we're here with the co-owner, Ben Vickers.
Hey,
welcome.
Mate. Long time no speak.
Yeah, by your choice.
Not really, mate. You never reach out to me.
No, it was
I'm the forgotten man of Australian MMA.
What people don't know is I started my MMA career essentially with Eternal MMA, being the ring announcer, commentator. You gave me that gig because I undercut the previous ring announcer, said I'd do it for cheaper.
Yeah. And then your fashion got you thrown out of the job. That goal, that fucking snakeskin waistcoat that you wore. Yeah. You've never been able to come back from that.
I've always pushed the envelope.
I would like to say, first and foremost, obviously we go back and forth sometimes as a promotion and yourself, but you did a lot for Eternal back in the day. You travelled, you worked for basically nothing, and you put a lot of time and effort into it, and I'll always be grateful for that. I don't know what happened in the last couple of years where we drifted apart and we lost contact with one another, but from the bottom of my heart, thank you for helping us when we were in our hour of need, because Eternal has been hamstrung by cash. It's something that Cam and I don't have a lot of. We're just normal people who run a business, a small business, and it's with our own funds. We're not backed by anyone. No one invests money into us. So it's always a financial challenge. And in the beginning, it was people like you that saw the vision, saw the future, and were enthused about the brand that helps us get to where we are today. And there's you and a number of others that will never be forgotten. And I know sometimes it gets further away from recency, so it gets left behind a little bit. But I just wanted to make it public that I don't know if people think there's beef between Eternal and Mitch. There definitely isn't. I consider us as friends. Yeah, we haven't spoken for a while, but I just wanted to put that on record, like, straight away. No,
that means a lot, and people need to know that I am, even though Cam has probably said it to people privately, I am nothing without Eternal. And I wouldn't be in the spot. I mean, I wouldn't have the weight. Like, of what I say weirdly mattered. And it only mattered because, if I messaged a fighter for an interview, it's only because they went, oh, you were the ring announcer, that's how we know each other. Of course I'll jump on. Wouldn't have had that without you guys. So enough of pulling each other's dicks. Yeah. But it is. It's like, and people need to know, but as I've always said to you guys, I hold you at the highest standard. And sometimes it's unfair because you're not the NBA, you're not the NBL, you're not flush with money type thing, but I hold you to a standard where I'm like, why didn't you make this fight? It's like, well, because Mitch, my daughter needs to go to dancing lessons. That's why. I do try to put that into when I am sort of ranting about this sort of stuff. But you've got to kind of like that as well. That everyone buys in and thinks that you should be able to. I
think it's very important for you and people to understand that if you've thought of a matchup, Cam and I have thought of the matchup, right? And if we could make those sensical matchups happen, we would. It's like I said on the broadcast, between Jacinta and Amina, was the easiest fight I've ever made. Alex, I phoned Alex Cariotti. Will Jacinta fight Amina? Yes. I phoned Cam phones Joe Lopez. Will Amina fight Jacinta? Yes. So send a contract, sign, done. It's never that easy. And it's the fights you throw out make sense. But there's always semantics. There's always not the right timings, and we don't like getting in too much into the weeds in Eternal of making our shit public.
Yeah.
But we have receipts for everything we do. We do everything properly. A couple of times we announce fights too early, and that was a mistake that we need to learn from, and we take that on board. Yeah. But when we announce those fights too early, we have verbal contracts, and we have written messages. They're never announced without two people agreeing to that fight on paper. Now, whether it's the coach agreeing to it and hasn't asked the fighter yet, we would never release a fight unless both parties have written agreement to it. Now, that doesn't mean they've signed a contract, but it means we might have a text message from Joe Bloggs and a text message from John Smith, both agreeing to fight one another. Yes, we should wait until we contract that fight, but sometimes it's short time span. Sometimes we need to do the promotion, and sometimes it backfires on you. It happened to Dana White. In a press conference, he announced a load of fights he announced Jack versus Gilbert before we'd even signed a contract for Jack versus Gilbert. And we didn't even, and he gave us a date before, we didn't even know that date yet. I found out about that fight on YouTube watching Dana White's press conference, you know, and I rang Jack and I was like, fuck, am I out of the loop? Have I been sacked? Like, and he was like, first I've heard of it, and he hadn't even watched the press conference. So it happens across the board. It's poor form, but it does happen. So, so yeah, like, trust me, we want to make the best fights. I think it's what Eternal's foundation is built upon. We didn't have money, so we couldn't put bells and whistles and bright lights, but we could put great action center cage. And as Eternal's biggest critic, probably outside of Cam, I've never walked away from Eternal show going, fuck, that fights was shit, you know? Never, ever, in 13 years of doing it. I might have walked away and said the rest was shit, the cage canvas was shit, the lights were shit, the broadcast was shit, but I've never walked away. The commentary was definitely shit in Sydney, because I was on it. I should stay away from the commentary booth. But I've never walked away and gone, the fights were shit. And to me, that's what people want to see. They come to watch matchups, and Eternal is famous for its matchups. And that's what I'm most proud of.
Well, I got to ask you this then. How much do you think, you talk about trying to make the best fights, how much do you think exclusive contracts are getting in the way?
I think what people need to understand is it's a business, right? And promoting is a business, and it's a freaking shit one because it costs a lot of money and you generally don't make a lot of money. It's just the way the nature of the game, the sport's young, it doesn't have a mainstream following. So, but it is getting there. So for me, an exclusive contract is very important. What it does, I'll ask you a question first. What is the biggest problem fighters have in this country?
Getting fights?
Correct. So if you sign an exclusive contract with me and I say to you, I'm going to give you 3 fights this year in 12 months, right? Or I'm at least going to offer you 3 fights in 12 months. That is good for you as well, right? Because you're going to be guaranteed to get that many fights. Like Harry Webb's on a 5-fight exclusive deal in 12 months. I must find that guy. That means if I need, like I said, again, on the broadcast the other day, if I need to go now to London to find him an opponent and it costs me 10 grand to bring someone over in purses and with the exchange, that's what I need to do. Because so for me, as a promoter, exclusive contracts are mutually beneficial because I'm committing to you and you're committing to me. I can now spend money on you knowing that for 12 months I can promote you as mine and mine alone, and I can push you towards, and I can build you into the right fights at the right time. And I don't mean giving you easy fights, but I mean I'm going to give you the right fight at the right time in your career to propel you to what my goal is, which is to get you into the UFC where you can have a good career there.
Do you see, though, how it... Like from business perspective, from the fighter perspective, getting him fights, that makes sense, right? But can you see on the narrative sense where, let's take the flyweights, for example, where you got Drillich as Eternal, you got Stewie Nickel who feels like he's over at Beatdown, and you've got Gauchi who feels like he's stuck over in Hex. Those 3 people have wanted to see fight, right? But let's say they don't want to come over to Eternal because they don't want to maybe win the belt and then get stuck at Eternal and they can't kind of do anything else. Have you guys ever talked about that at all, how that might be an issue?
Can I put this to you? If you had a Nike sponsorship and it was exclusive and then Adidas came to you and said, well, we want you to wear Adidas shoes now. If Nike's perceived as the best sponsorship to have, why would you go to Adidas? For me, Eternal's the best promotion in Australasia, in the region. So why not fight on the best promotion? We have a track record of growing and developing fighters properly, putting them where our champions are 18-3 in the UFC. So why is it such a bad thing to be exclusive to the best promotion in the country? I don't understand that.
Well, wouldn't you have signed Gauchi?
Tried.
But that's like, you haven't signed every fighter. No. I think that's if you were the best, would they not all be here?
That's why I scratch my head.
Do you get feedback on why? Like, do you know, say why Sean Gauchi didn't sign?
Oh, what if there's another opportunity somewhere else? What if? Look at Harry Webb. He was Hex champ, but they couldn't get him a fight, and now he's had to go somewhere else to look for a fight. I said to him, or Cam said to him, we'll get you fights. We guarantee you that. And that was all he needed to hear. Sign the contract.
But wouldn't you just, no exclusive contracts, and if you're the best, everyone will want to fight for you?
It doesn't work like that, though, because it's not working like that now. I don't know why everyone feels so hard done by that. The best in the business in this country want them and want to look after them and want to take them on board and develop them and spend money on them and invest in them. And all we want them to do is do what they want to do. Take 3 fights a year. So I'm all for exclusive contracts, and I'm a businessman. If I can get every fighter in the country to fight for me, how good is that for me? And I know that doesn't serve everybody else. But why do I have to be philanthropic? This is my business, and this is an industry that I've put my heart and soul into for 13 years. You're sitting in my gym. I've got 8 fighters on the card on the weekend. I love this shit. I'm well invested in this shit. I know how to train fighters. I know how to develop fighters. And I know how to make fighters successful on the highest stage. Why not come and work with me and Cam? We're good at doing that. Like, why not?
Well, then I've got one question on that. Does that not mean that you care more about Eternal and the business than the sport? Like, what's
not at all? Because I believe I can service both things through Eternal. But I also have no problem with anyone else going and fighting anywhere else. It is entirely your decision. Like, we're not out there like we still sign single fight deals with people. We don't make you sign exclusive to fight on Eternal. It's just your choice. And if you choose to take that choice, welcome aboard. We'll look after you. We look forward to getting you in the cage 3, 4, 5 times a year against international opponents, equally matched opponents, and we will develop you into a better fighter through the promotion.
So where would you say the state of Australian MMA is right now?
Pound for pound, it's the strongest country in the world, skill for skill, in the UFC. For the demographic, the amount of people we have and the amount of talent we have in the UFC, the sport in this country is flying, but it could be better.
What do you think are some of the issues?
It's just fighters. There's just a dearth of fighters. There's not enough fighters in every weight division to give people to have locals fighting each other all the time, hence the influx now of internationals coming into the sport.
Yeah, I swear I say we as Eternal, when I was around a couple of years ago, 5 years ago nearly, we weren't big fans of international fights. Why has it changed?
Because I don't have the fighters now to service the champions and the higher level. They've either all fought each other or they're all operating in different circles that we can't penetrate to get the matches to come together. I
mean, and I don't know the books of it, but like, surely it would be cheaper to just give, say, Sean Gauci, I keep going back to him, but he kind of represents it, Sean Gauci like $1,000 more than spending $5,000 bringing someone in. Am I way off with the money?
I tried really hard. Like, I don't know what's happened, and I'm not going to go, like I said, I've got receipts for everything. I have a video of Sean Gauci that we nearly released, but something else happened and it didn't happen. You know, we've tried really hard to make all of these things happen. Ant Drilic is our champion. I have offered the fight to Stuart Nickel, and I have offered the fight to Sean Gauci. They've both turned it down. I'm not saying they're scared at all. That is not. But for whatever reason, they don't want to do that fight on Eternal. Why would I let my champion, who's had all these fights on Eternal, go somewhere else and give the shine to another promotion? I'm not going to do that. I'd rather bring in good level opposition for him from elsewhere. Ant's on the cusp of going international. So let's get him some international competition. Let's get him the international experience locally. And let's help him move on his journey that way. If these guys don't want to fight him or don't want to fight him on Eternal, he's exclusive to Eternal. He's a champ. So it's the only place it's going to happen. So there's no opportunity of you ever kind of letting him out. Say there's that one fight he wants to fight Gauci won't fight here. You're never going to let him out type thing like that. Is that a business sense? Is that a coach sense? Is that a... Like, because I want you to sort of unblur the line between I run the business and this makes business sense, and I care about it, so I think I can look after him the best. I believe I can look after Anthony in Eternal. If I didn't, then I'd look at, like we did with Jack, we took Jack to Cage Warriors, you know, I'd look at international options. Khan Diatta was matched on the new 971 promotions in Dubai. Unfortunately, his opponent pulled out. So I'm not against like giving my guys opportunities elsewhere, but in Australia, I believe like why? I have a platform for them to sit on, and I can make sure that they're well treated, they're well looked after, and they're well matched. And I don't mean they're matched in a way they're going to win. That's not what I'm getting at. I mean they're well matched in an even fight that's going to that they've got every opportunity to win, but they've also got every opportunity to lose, and it's going to develop them in their career. Like, fighting cans is pointless at the top end of your career because it's not developing. It's a waste of a camp. It's a waste of time. Like, I would go so far as to say Joey Luciano did what he had to do, right? You fight who's put in front of you, and he dispatched that guy really quickly. Yeah. But he would have felt that was a bit of a waste of his training camp.
And everyone would have said that.
And he didn't feel too great after that fight. So that's what we're trying to avoid doing, because it's no good for the fighter that you're doing it for either, even though they might think it is. And I understand, you know, people need to be active and it's hard to get fights, especially at the top end of divisions in this country, especially with the fractured sort of Hex do this, Eternal do this, Beatdown do this. But I understand there's no cohesion there. So, bringing internationals in is purely due to needs must. We don't have the talent here that's available to us. But yeah, you're right. Economically, it costs us a fortune. But I've committed. He's exclusive. I'm committed to him.
What happens if you don't? Let's say we go back to the Harry Webb contract. 12 months, 5 fights. You don't give it to him. You just go, soz, my bad. Like, is there any like?
Yeah, I mean that's where you have to talk to the lawyers. I don't know. Like, these contracts are written by lawyers, so I'm assuming that there's legal recourse. But we'll get him the fights. Yeah. Like, that's what we get, and that's what I guess my message is don't worry that you're not going to get fights. And I know there's been like an example of something happening where the exclusive contract didn't quite work out, but you know, that's one example of many where it has worked out. Give us a chance to prove it. Like, I'll get you 5 fights in 12 months if that's what you want, and you're fresh and you're available. And if I say I'm going to do something, and I think you can attest to this, I'm a man of my word. Yeah. If I give you my word that I'm going to get you 3 fights this year, I will present you 3 fights this year that are reasonable and acceptable for you to match. And then it's up to you.
Do you think we get too carried away with, I mean, I would be massive problem with this, but do you think we get too carried away with like the Anthony Drillage, we want to see him fight Gauchi, or see him fight Nickel? Do you think that all 3 of them can make their own way, just fight international guys, and it is what it is?
I think for 2 of those 3 people fighting where they're fighting, it's going to be harder. But I do think they can all make their own way. Definitely. Just retracking a little bit. Why has no one got a problem with the UFC doing exclusive contracts?
Because it's the top of the top and they're making a living.
But that's what I'm saying. Well, we're the top of the top in this country. So
but if a guy no one can really pay more than the UFC except for like the top end.
No, definitely not.
But in this situation, other people can, and other people might need.
Not necessarily. I mean, our pays are very. I hear what other people get paid, and we're at the top end of the scale.
My question with it is, and when it comes to like an Anthony Drillage fight, so you go, this is all hypothetical, right? But I want your thoughts on this. So Anthony Drillage goes, oh yeah, we offered the fight to Gauchi, but he didn't want it, right? So my thought is, you go, hey, want to come fight our exclusive champ? If you win, you have to stay exclusive. Here's $500. You don't want it? Oh, okay, cool. He didn't want the fight. Like, that's kind of like, there's a lot of times like, they didn't want the fight. We offered them, they didn't want it. But it's like, are you offering them market value?
I'm not saying you definitely. We're definitely offering market value. And our exclusive athletes are the ones that will get looked after the most because they're the ones committing themselves to us. So it's definitely not, we're not offering someone of that caliber $500. You know what I mean? And it's thousands of dollars we're talking about it. It's not, and I know what other people get paid because people tell me. So I know that there's probably one show that pays more than us, maybe to certain people, but not to others that has availability of cash. But most people are in the same boat as Eternal. Like, we're all running this out of our own bank accounts. You know what I mean? None of us are in this country, I would say, are super wealthy people running fight shows and just burning money. Do you know what I mean? So it all has to be done within the economics, because if the show goes away, where does anyone's opportunities go? And not last year, but the year before, Eternal nearly broke financially. Not the year after COVID, but the year after, like the second year after COVID, when we thought everything was going to be sweet. That's when the economic shit really hit. And one bad show for Cam and I is a catastrophe because we have to find the money that we didn't have to pay people. Yeah, so 2 Christmases ago, as a man who owns 3 businesses, I sat there with $300 for the month of December. 2 children, hosting Christmas for all my family, and I've got $300 in my bank account because I floated Eternal with Cam for 2022. And if it nearly went away. Luckily, 2023, we came back with a bang, and the UFC came, and everything kicked off again, and we started getting the numbers through the doors, and we turned a bit of a corner. But I mean, it was almost the end of Eternal at the end of 2022, and I didn't have any money left to put into it, and Cam didn't have any money left to put into it. It was just lucky that we managed to extricate ourselves from the situation and get to where we're at now. And people need to understand that. Like, for whatever people see Eternal as a big thing, which it is, but it's still run by 2 blokes in the background, and we're not perfect, but I think we've done a lot for the sport in this country, and 6 figures in 2022. Me and Cam paid of our own money, and we still don't have it back yet, which is fine. That's the risk you take as a business person. Like, I understand that. I'm not crying about it. I just need people to understand the visual isn't the reality, and we're working, Cam and I, we're the team. That's it. There's not a big team. There's not loads of people. And I have other things to do as well. I didn't take a salary from Eternal. I do it all. I paid to do it, essentially. So, which is fine. I love it. And I don't want people to think I'm standing here like crying about it. But I need people to understand the reality of fight promotion. And, like I said, Eternal's stabilized and Eternal's here to stay, and we're committed to the future. And the last 2 years, or year and a half, we've really started to blow up. And I believe Eternal's getting to where it belongs. It's just been a challenge. And I just want people to understand that whatever you see, the beautiful swan you see sailing on the top, it's fucking chaos underneath there. And it's hard work. And I've had a heart attack and then turned up at the show the next day, fielding phone calls on a gurney at weigh-in day because it's in Perth and Cam's not from Perth and he hasn't got my laptop. And, I've sacrificed a lot for this sport, but because I chose to. I'm not asking for anyone's sympathy. I just need people to understand Eternal might not be what you think it is on the surface. It's just 2 hard-working blokes that love the sport, that are trying our best and putting our version of what we think a promotion should be to the fore. And that's all we can do.
You had a heart attack?
I had a heart attack when I was 39 or 40, yeah.
Why?
Stress. I rolled 12 rounds of jiu-jitsu just out there, and Cam was in here working away. It was summer, it was December, before DS1. You might have even been emceeing it.
Yeah.
And I just sat there and I was just like, fuck, I don't feel good, And an hour later, I still felt the same. I thought I might just be hot and I might just need to recover. And Cam was like, you don't look good. I'm going to take you to the hospital. and they took me to the hospital. I was admitted. I was kept overnight. Elevated levels of troponin, which means I've had a stress event in my heart. All the subsequent testing was good. My heart is perfect. Like, no calcium buildup, no clogged arteries. My heart's good. So it's just a stress event.
Have you ever thought about walking away?
Yeah. I quit Eternal 2 years ago. But how can you walk away when you're fucking hundreds of thousands of dollars in the hospital? Like, where? But, I never wanted to be a promoter. Hate it. Hate it with a passion.
Well, if you walked away, how come you're back? Like, what?
Because you can't walk away when you're in a hole. Like, I said to Cam I want out, and then I was going to do 1 more year. And then at the end of that year, we were in the shit. And I can't just go, I'll see you, Cam. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not that guy. So I said I'll give it another year to help us get out of this hole, and then I'll leave. But now we're making progress and we're moving in the right direction, and I'm more motivated because it seems to be showing some results. Whereas before, it was just like 12 years of banging your head against a brick wall and just spending all your money, spending so much time away from my family. And my wife's like, you just went away for a week and you come back and we're poorer. Like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I do want to walk away from it, but I have a commitment to I don't know, 25 lads that train at 9:30 with me every day to get them fights. And I've said this before, like, I don't necessarily like the way the other promotions do it. And I don't know if I'd be comfortable in another promotion having charge of my fighter's career, which is essentially what promoters do. They have a big role in a fighter's career. And like I've always said, you can run your promotion however you like, but how we run Eternal is how I think it should be done, right? And I'm not 100% confident in just Eternal ceasing to exist, and then where does everyone fight now? Now, you know, it might be what everyone else wants. And they're like, oh shit, everyone else can fight each other now, Eternal. But it's not what I want. And so I'll stick around and just, you know, Cam's been great. Obviously with Jack Della's success, I'm away a lot. I travel a lot. And then with the team, I've got Ant and Rod as current Australian champions. Becca, who's obviously made the comeback, looked great in camp, you know, the best he's looked since the injury. So I'm really excited for his future. You know, I'm really busy. But I'm happy to keep plodding away with Eternal. Cam does most of the hard work. Perth's obviously very busy for me, and we'll talk about Perth hopefully soon, because obviously this is where I live and it's where it's my event essentially, and Cam pretty much does all the others. But Perth is my responsibility. We match make together and we're always sort of on the phone making matches. But outside of that, Cam's developing the company, growing the company, doing the admin, doing the nuts and bolts. And, you know, he is the hardest working man in Australian MMA, without a shadow of a doubt.
He's insane, and he knows, and I like to think I know a fair bit about this sport and the scene. You'd say any name to that man, and yeah, he's Cam. But like, he's got everything. He knows the backstory of everyone. Now, before we do move on to Eternal MMA 85, Jack Della. Now, you told me, and I've never actually gotten to sort of recount this back to you, but when
poster boy of scrappy MMA.
But not even that. It was like when he was like 21 or something, and we started at the Italian club, and I was like ring announcing. You said to me when we were talking about Jack, and you go, 100% he'll be a world champion. And I was like, where? And you were like, in the UFC. Like, he'll be a UFC world champion. And at the time, I know to everyone that is listening to this, they're like, yeah, of course, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. But at the time, that was like a crazy thing to say. What made you think that?
I don't think it was crazy because I live in this gym with Jack, you know, for the last, I don't know, 11, 12 years. He's not missed a session. You know, his brain is different to everybody else's. The way I just knew from watching him, and it, for me, it's the way that I can give him information and he'll immediately process it and try and implement it. And then he's good enough to go, oh, it doesn't really work for me, but he's always going to try it. And he's just a different guy. Just professionalism levels, all the 1%ers, you know, but just skill wise. I believe he was put on this planet to beat people up because he's just fucking good at it. And he doesn't get ruffled, he doesn't get out of his head, he doesn't get over nervous, you know, all these things are present within him, but he just deals with it so well. And I said to the lads today when we wrapped camp, because they're all just going to focus on it, I said, what did I say? We were talking about Jack. What was
you got CT already?
Yeah, well, I can't remember anything. There's many contributing factors to that. What were we talking about? I said to the lads today after training, I can't remember. It'll come back to me. But we get probably, like, you train 360 days a year. You might have, or 350 days a year, you might have a couple of weeks off. And you get 2-3 opportunities to exhibit that work. You must take advantage of that, and you must be on point on those 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And that can separate a world champion from someone who never makes the UFC. Yeah. Because there's people in the gym that are good enough, but if you can't put it together on the night when it matters, then it's pointless. So I say to the lads, take advantage of this opportunity because you get 2 or 3 of them a year. So to exhibit what you've been doing, what you've been working on, and who you are. But the rest of it is done in silence.
Who is one of the best fighters in the gym that can never put it together on show day?
I don't know that we have gym fighters at the moment. Like, everyone's pretty good at putting it together on the show day. I think Ryan Gray would admit that, you know, he's one of the most talented fighters I've ever had. I'd say more naturally talented than Jack Della. It just he just never managed to pull it together. The one fight he pulled it together was in Adelaide. You were there against Miles Simpson. It was just a complete clinic. Yeah. And he was in shape but
that card, by the way, you guys basically went broke, made no money, still paid all the fighters. And
we had 200 people in an 8,000 seat stadium.
It was, I believe Cam said, never going back to Adelaide again.
We've never been back to Adelaide since. But, you know, that was when it was made really hard for us in Adelaide. You know, people in Adelaide didn't want us to be there.
You guys look like you're mending that bridge. It looks like there's fighters from that.
Yeah, like, I never want to burn any bridges. Like, honestly, I much prefer to get along with people. It's so much easier. But I will stand my ground, and if you do something I don't like, I'll be the first person to tell you about it, as you know. Like, but I much prefer to be friendly and everyone have a good relationship and they'll all be uplifting and all help each other. But it's not always sunshine and rainbows, and sometimes it goes tits up. And obviously, we all only ever look from our own perspective. So sometimes it's hard to see other people's perspective. And look, this sport is much easier if we cooperate. This country and this region will run so much better if we cooperate, even to the lowest degrees. Like, for me, competition is good. I want competition. I'm a competitor. It makes me work harder. I like competition. I like fair and equitable competition. I'm into it. It makes everyone better. And I think we have a good portion of that at the moment in this country. But I still feel like we're leaps and bounds ahead of the competition. However, I want to keep that gap and grow it. So that's why I like the fact that people are coming up and people are nipping on the heels and people are putting more effort in and people are good, because it means we can't be complacent and we must continue to grow. Otherwise, we will get overtaken.
Well, now, before we chat about the card that is in front of us, just is there anything, because you're a behind-the-scenes man, you very rarely do any interviews whatsoever, bar horrendous commentary, you're never saying anything. But is there anything that you want people to know from behind the scenes of Eternal? Like a message to them, just anything that the company wishes the public knew more?
I'd like everyone to be open to working with us. I'd like everyone to come and experience what we do at Eternal, how we treat fighters, how we match you, how the whole process works, how Cam and I are to deal with on a personal level. Don't write us off because of maybe you may have heard things or people tell you things or you're sort of banded into a certain group. Like, Eternal's open for everyone. My goal is to put the best fighters into the UFC, regardless of what gym they come from. I understand that some of my guys are going to get beat in the important fights because that's the kind of fights we're putting them in. You know, there may come a time where it's Wes or Harry that are going to go into the UFC. And it might be Wes that doesn't go, it might be Harry that doesn't go. But I'm prepared to put my fighters in that situation against the best guy because I know then that if they come through that, when they go to the next step, they're prepared and they've proved that they're ready. So all I would say is be open-minded. And if you haven't fought for Eternal and you've heard stuff, reach out to me. I am available on Messenger. I don't have social media, but I'm available on Messenger. Reach out to me and ask me some questions. I'm a pretty engaging, I don't mind having a chat, I'll talk to anyone, and I do love this sport. If you need some advice, or I'm definitely down. Like, I want to help the best fighters graduate. That's all I want to do, and that's all Eternal wants to do.
Fair enough. Now we head to Eternal MMA 85. We won't go through every card, but we talked about internationals as well. It does feel like it's, you know, the old school, it's scrappy MMA versus Japan. Like, it's got this weird vibe. You've explained why, you know, that is the case type thing. But I've always struggled as a forced journalist that the people have made me. I don't know much about the international guys. Yeah. That's why I don't like it as much, because I need to build your opponent up so that when you beat them, it means something.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. All I'm doing is narratives and storytelling and all that sort of stuff. So out of all the internationals that are competing, and I'll go through it for everyone a little bit later, who is sort of the real standout that you know?
So Rod's opponent, Ito, and Becker's opponent, Matsumoto, I believe I got the names right, but apologies in advance. They're both top 15 ranked fighters in Japan.
How do you know? Just Tapology or...
Tapology and then research, and they both held belts, one on Gratchen, I think the other one on Shuto, which are big shows in Japan.
Yep.
So they both held titles, as Drilich's last opponent had been a Ryzen junior champion or something like that. So they're established fighters with big records, big experience, and they're in the top 15. We will only... And I understand, I don't think the standard in Japan is as high as the standard is here. And we're proving that now because we bring in good guys with credentials from Japan who get beat pretty resoundingly by our guys. And it looks like, oh, you brought the cans in. And that's where what you say, people aren't doing it. Like, investigate, and people can do this investigation. Go on Tapology and put Rod's opponent in and put Becker's opponent in, right? Then go and put Cody Haddon's opponent in and go and put who's the other guy that's fighting from Japan on beatdown. Is this Shui Nickel?
No, I don't.
They rank somewhere in the hundreds of the people they could have picked out of Japan. So I think we're doing two different things. But it looks on the surface like we're doing the same thing. But I think it's two different things. Because for me, Cody is one of the best fighters in the country. He shouldn't be fighting someone who's ranked 100. Do you know what I mean? But again, it's hard to get in fights, especially with the split between who's fighting on which shows and blah, 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 blah.
Did you try and make the... I mean, you said if a fight pops into my head, you've tried to make it. Did you try and make Cody versus Rod in Perth? That makes sense.
At the time, no.
Why?
I'm not going to go into the reasons. I am actually not. But I will tell you afterwards. I just don't want to make it public why I'm not. I didn't match that fight. It's not to say I won't match it in the future.
Yeah.
But there's a few reasons behind why... when Cody's chosen his path elsewhere, for the most part, we used to offer him fights. And he used to turn them down to go on other shows, which is fine. That is completely his choice. And if he finds better opportunities, better timescales elsewhere, that's completely his choice. But he's then doesn't become my priority because he's not known to my organisation and Eternals fans necessarily. He's not synonymous with the promotion like Quill and Sale Killed is necessarily. So he's not as important to me. However, I do know that is one of the best bantamweight fights possible in the country. So it's not to say it won't happen. I'm not ruling that out. You know, there's another big card coming up in August. But yeah, again, I also have my own codes that I stick to, and sometimes things don't work out quite the way I'd like them to, no matter how hard I've tried. I am stubborn, and sometimes I go, well, look, that's in the too hard basket for the time being. And as much as I'd like to make that fight, for whatever reason it's hard, or for whatever reason it's not financially viable, and it's a really tough one for me because it's not actually Cody's fault, but he comes with a lot of extra expense if I use him. And that may sound critical, but I can't go into it. But there is external expense attributed to Cody Haddon fighting on Eternal in Perth. Read into that what you will, and I will explain to you after the show. But it's whether I have to then mitigate that expense.
No, I get what you're saying.
So
I don't know why you're not going into it. And yeah.
All right, I'll tell you, because security costs go up when Cody... I have to spend $5,000 more on police when Cody Haddon fights in the HBF Stadium in Perth. There you go.
They're rowdy fans.
But it's not his fault because he doesn't want that.
Yeah.
But what do I do? Like, because then I've got to pay him his purse. He's a good fighter. He deserves a good purse. He's a championship level fighter. And then it becomes an economic blowout. And I just can't afford to do it. So it's tough for me.
So it's got nothing to do with Rod.
Rod and Cody would love to fight each other.
Have you told Rod that?
Yeah.
Have you told,
I see Rod every fucking day, man.
Have you told Cody that?
I think Jasmine knows, but maybe not. I don't... We haven't had any back and forth recently about matching Cody. Only recently has the conversation reignited. And it's not a conversation that I'm against. Cody's fucking great. He's a good fighter. He's a good kid. And he's talented. But, you know, I have a business to run. And I have patrons to protect also. We have a great crowd. I don't want to ruin the dynamic of my crowd and then lose fans because there's a riot. I
mean, and like for people to know, it's not like he is from some cartel.
No, like I'm saying this is completely nothing to do with Cody.
Yeah.
He's got rowdy fans, but he can't control who his fans are. This is not an indictment on Cody's behaviour. Cody behaves nothing but great, you know, and he calls for calm. But if, you know, I'm not risking the safety of my patrons for the sake of having Cody Haddon on the card. And I didn't really want to get into it because it's not fair on Cody.
No, but I think it's a good insight. I think it's one of the things, it's one of my critiques, if I will, of you and Cam, is that you think people don't want to know this behind the scenes shit. But but I think it is important because otherwise, if you didn't say that, I'll tell you what they're all saying. Ben doesn't want to serve his champion up, Rod, to Cody, who will take him out. So Ben's not letting that fight happen. But do you know what I mean? But you then saying this, everyone goes, I didn't even fucking think of that. I didn't even think of that. And I'm fucking balls deep in the sport. So it's made me go a little bit like, oh, okay. And that's where it's like, and I'll talk to Cam about this as well, is like that little bit of transparency. I know, like you said, it's not necessarily fair.
It's not nice for Cody to hear that.
No, but it's not. But it's like, it is an important aspect of, and whether people agree with it or not, it's important for people to know. Is Cody the only one that's sort of happened with, or is there other fighters that?
No, there's no one else.
It's that bad.
You've been there.
I've seen it. I've been there.
And in one fight, it was his own fans fighting each other.
Not fans.
Yeah, no. But these people that attacked poor Cody.
Yeah.
He had the best fight ever with Usyk, one of the best fight Eternal's ever done. You know, right. Stephen Usyk, Cody had an iconic fight. Go back and watch it. It's on Fight Pass. You know, Usyk's gone on to do amazing things.
Amazingly.
And even the post-fight interview with Morsey sitting down because, you know, it was iconic. And it was ruined by 20 idiots that started a riot in the crowd afterwards that were both Cody Haddon's set of supporters. And I'm not going to... I want to get onto E85 because I feel for Cody. Because he tells me he doesn't want this. But it's also his job as an athlete to try and sell tickets and promote the event. So what do you do? Do you know what I mean? And I really feel for Cody. But it's just hard for Eternal and Cody in Perth.
No. And the reason why I saw it is because I was working there, but I didn't have anything to do. So
that's a private joke. You got paid for the fuck.
Oh, I did actually. That was actually... I remember one, I think the Adelaide card, no, you still paid me, but I said don't pay me when that did well. And I worked really hard that show. And then you've always made it up to me because sometimes I've done fuck all and you're like, here's an envelope full of money.
But it's always been my thing that everyone gets paid. Yeah. Like, whatever small paltry sum it might have been, I believe that my responsibility is to pay everyone. And before we move on to 85, that year I said that was hard. In December, I had to call about 5 or 6 debtors that I had, or creditors, if you like, and ring them and say, I'm really sorry I don't have your money. But I don't have it. There's literally no way I can get it. As soon as, you know, we were waiting for a payment to come in, I was like, as soon as I have it, my debts list is getting paid off and we'll worry about everything else after that. But it's so embarrassing as a 40-odd-year-old man to be ringing people up and going, thanks for your services that you gave me. By the way, can't pay you yet. You know, it's fucking embarrassing as an adult. But that's just where we got to. So, yeah.
Well, how much of a saving grace is Fight Pass? Like, do they come in, they're like, here's heaps of money? Because I'm assuming that's what everyone thinks. Is they're like, here's hundreds of thousands of dollars, figure it out.
Fight Pass is fucking awesome. We have a great relationship with them. We love being on the platform. It's good synergy. It's like a blue tick of approval from the premier organisation. But they're not paying us life-changing money, I can assure you. I mean, their money would cover our broadcast, maybe.
Obviously not, because you got to jump on the commentary.
Well, I charge big money. But we pay, like, a lot of money for our broadcast. It's, you know, there's a lot of cameras in the room. There's a lot of moving parts behind the broadcast. And, you know, it's good that we have a platform for it, and you know, every cent that is given to us is appreciated. But you know, it's not life changing, and it's not like we're riding off into the sunset on our Fight Pass contract, but it's extremely helpful.
Well, at Eternal 85, what's the fight that's sticking out for you? What do you think is one of the most intriguing ones?
There's so many like big fights on it. Like Rod Ito is a massive fight. Ant Drilic is in this vital stage of his career now, where every fight is hyper important.
We did talk about those three athletes, Nickel, Gauci, and Ant. What I actually like about it is there's a lot of pressure. Every single time they fight anyone that's not the other guy, you got to win, and you got to win quicker, and you got to.
And at the stage of your career now, looking with UFC goals, if you lose, you're a year back, because you need normally three, at least a 3-fight win streak to be even considered. So the stakes are really high right now in the flyweight division for all of those guys.
Do you know, you would be connected to a lot of the UFC guys and obviously dealing with Jack and stuff as well. Does the UFC keep in contact and go, hey, like Anthony's this close?
No.
Is it anything like that? Or
maybe with some fighters, but never. I've never experienced that with any.
So you just know, you never know. They just call one day.
You've got management and people like that sniffing around, and you're probing in the background. You're speaking to Mick Maynard, you're speaking to Sean Shelby, and you know. Most you ever get is, oh, thanks for the info, and you know, normally not until it's imminent do you really get any inclination that it's going to happen, unless your manager's sort of tapped into the matchmakers better.
Yeah. Where does Jack Becker sit with a win? Because the lightweight seems to be a bit clogged up at the minute.
Yeah, I think Jack with a win puts himself in like #1 contender place. Obviously, Wes and Dave is the #1 contender fight.
If they make weight.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's a lot of interesting weight stories around this one. Obviously, Wes had trouble with his weight on the last show. Dave's a history of having trouble with his weight. But I've seen Wes, you know, the last show was just after Christmas, and he was a bit unhappy about where he ended up after Christmas. You know, maybe the discipline waned a little bit. He just had a new baby. So he left himself a bit too much to do. And if you'd have seen him at the weigh-ins, we can't have him in that state again.
No.
You know, it was pretty horrendous. But Wes is light. I've seen him last week. He's fucking training really well. He's on point. He's fit. So I don't have a worry about Wes's weight. And Dave, obviously, given the history, we've been in regular contact with Dave in his camp, and I don't think there's going to be an issue with the weights there.
As his coach and his promoter, how do you feel about Wes Kappa booking a boxing match? I think it's a couple of days after. If he wins this fight, he'll fight Harry for the title in August 17th, 18th. Can't remember which date it is. I believe right now he has a boxing match booked on August 20th. It's around that time. But what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, he's kind of juggling two different careers. You're his coach, but it also kind of feels more like you're his consultant. I'm
not too concerned about that fight at this time.
Yeah.
There's no contracts written for August. So I just need to get this fight out of the way. As far as I'm aware, he hasn't signed a contract for that boxing fight. So
it's announced without a contract.
As far as I'm aware. Now, whether that's changed since I spoke to Wes, my problem is I'm not on social media, so I get everything secondhand. Like my phone will start blowing up, you know, and I'll be like, "What's this about Wes having a boxing fight?" I'm like, "Well, first I've fucking heard of it," and then I ring Wes and he goes, "First I've fucking heard of it." So like, don't listen.
And then you call me and abuse me.
Not necessarily. That wasn't the timeline. It was a little bit later than that. I started abusing me. But no, I think Wes and Dave was the fight that I'm going to sort of highlight on this card, because obviously the match is set. The next match is set, and it's exciting because of who Harry is and the style, and those Infinite MMA boys can fight. So the style and the match, I mean, you know, it's mouth-watering on both sides, because if it's Wes and Harry, the stand-up show is fucking something else. And if it's Dave and Harry, then you get that sort of striker versus grappler. Yeah. But we know Infinite MMA's grappling, as we saw with Luke Daly on the weekend. Apologies, Luke, that all the Eternal staff want to call you Luke Daly. But Luke Daly and the commentary team on the weekend, I'd like to apologise for the whole Eternal
Cal Potter did it too,
for ruining your fucking name. It's not that hard, and we've all said it before. So apologies, Luke. Just for everybody, it's the Diamond Dally, not Daily. I love going back and forth with T because he pronounces things wrong and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I like pulling him on it. I fucking lost my train of thought again. But yeah, those two matchups are intriguing.
Martinez versus Harry's never fought a grappler of Martinez's sort of pedigree as well. So it's like if he can shut down. I know it sounds like it's all getting served up to Harry, but that's kind of where Harry Webb feels right now. Is he does kind of feel like a bit of a prodigy lately. He's exploded,
and rightly so. Like the way he's exploded onto the scene and dispatched everybody. But now we're getting up into the high levels, and the Abdalla win was a solid win. We all know how good Abdalla is. However, he's a lightweight, a featherweight, not a lightweight. But he's a great fighter, and he's strong, and he's big at the weight. So that was a really impressive victory. I
want your thoughts on that too. I mean, Abdalla getting knocked out, jumping into a Muay Thai fight so quickly. I mean, as a coach, what's your thoughts on that?
It's not something I'm doing.
We obviously both know Steve very well, Steve Kennedy, his coach, who's been around for a long time. That's kind of what you did back in the day. But what's your thoughts on it?
It's not something that I would have done. And I think, like, for me, if you're an MMA fighter, that's got to be the priority. And that close to a big fight is kind of crazy. However, I understand fighters want to be active and fighters want to fight. And you probably think, it's just a Thai fight. For me, I think it highlights that maybe Abdalla wasn't quite recovered from the Harry fight, because the punches, and I've spoken to Steve about this, didn't seem like world-ending punches, and we've seen Abdalla where a lot worse in fours. So
he fought like Josh Coon.
I think he's going to take the rest of the year off and give his head a rest, and I think that's smart. But it's not for me to comment on however people are entitled to run their shit, be it an MMA show, a gym, however they like. It's not my job to worry about whatever other people are doing. I have a way I like to operate and a way I think things should be done, but I have no right to force that upon anybody else. They obviously made a decision as a team, and at the end of the day, Abdalla's the guy that makes the final decision. He wanted to fight. So he went out there, backed himself, and this time it didn't pay off. But if he knocks that guy out, and he's got confidence coming off of a loss, and it's a different scenario, and we're talking in a completely different fashion.
Well, the last sort of thing that's happening in the MMA world, the reason why I bring that up as well is because it started on a trickle effect, which eventually saw someone in your Grand Prix, George Mangos, eventually jump ship to another promotion because a spot filled up. What was your thoughts on that whole sort of process and how that went down?
It's not how I do business. It's not how I do business.
Was there anything contractually wrong, or was he in the clear to do that?
Yeah. There was no contract signed for that fight. There were, like I spoke about before, things in the background that have been said by people, and perhaps requests that have been made by teams for certain things that happen on certain dates. So it was a surprise, but again, he's got to do what he thinks is right, and whether it's the decision I would have made or not, that's George and his team's decision to make. There was no contract tying him into the Dimps fight. No written, signed contract tying him into the Dimps.
Do you think sometimes a lot of these issues are, like just with anyone in sort of broad narrative, is that some fighters speak to me, they don't have all the information from their coach. You guys have spoken to their coach?
Correct. I see it all the time. He done one with Oldin after, he pulled from, he lost his opponent on Eternal.
Yep.
And then he was in his gym saying that he'd never been offered any other opponents.
Yep.
I'd offered 2 opponents that morning. So a lot gets lost in translation.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't have all the information.
Yeah.
But again, whatever, man. We try and do everything right. And if someone's got a contract signed with someone else, we don't want to know. If we both, we've had it before where we've had fighters that have signed 2 contracts. Whoever signed the contract first wins. Okay. For me. So whether that's me or not, if you signed another contract before you signed mine, I don't have any right to match you because you were contracted to someone else, and it's unethical of me to match you.
Yeah.
And that's how we operate. So let's get back to Eternal 85.
Yeah.
So Martinez Kappa, such a big fight. Such a big fight. Striker grappler, traditional matchup. It's going to be really fun. to see if Wes can implement his game plan and to see if Dave can get a hold of him and, do what he wants to do with him on the ground. We all know what a handful Dave is once he gets. And obviously we've got Jack Becker here who's been able to help Wes, and they've got rounds in and there's information being shared about what it's like to face Dave and, what to expect in certain positions and stuff like that. So we feel like we're in a pretty good position going into that fight. But Dave never ceases to amaze me about how he manages to pull things off.
He's incredible. How much is Wes Kappa actually training at Scrappy MMA?
I probably get him once a week.
So it's still, like, are you as a coach, you got a full pro team and everything, are you still happy to kind of like claim him, or is it just...
He asked me to coach him.
But he does, I just see a lot of, and I hear a lot of it is still at the barn and he's training with the great...
He's got a tough life, He's got his own business. He's got 2 kids. He's the prime instructor in his gym. And it's far away from here.
Yeah.
It's like half an hour given traffic and stuff like that. So, but we talk about the fights. We game plan the fights. Like, I'm there for him. He talks to me. We have a good relationship in the corner. Yeah, I don't do heaps of work with him, but for me it's a pleasure because Wes is, when I moved here from the UK, Wes was like boxing and kickboxing, and he had the hat and he was always entertaining, and he was a bit of a star of the Perth combat sports scene. So when he approached me and asked me if I'd coach him for MMA, I was honoured. Obviously his mates all train here and they're all on the same card together, and so that vibe is good in the back, and I consider myself to be his coach. He's asked me to do it. I take time to study his opponents, and we work together, and we go back and forth. I'm basically like summarizing his work. I see him once a week, look at what he's been doing, tell him what to go away, like work on this, do this a little bit more. And yeah, it's not perfect. Like, I'd love to have him every day, and I think, God forbid, if I could get him and where we could get him to, but he's working with Bradshaw, he's working with Marco Ponos, so his grappling is on point, and he's proved that in here. He's a very hard man to take down, keep down.
How do you go with, I mean, you're promoting, co-promoting a show, you're coaching back to back to back to back to back, what feels like. I think you've got, is it 5-6 fighters on the main card? How are you going to manage all of their time? Or sorry, mate, you just got knocked out, but I got to go. Like, how do you manage this?
Yeah, I've got a team. So, we've got me, Ryan, Josh, Darcy, Sport. There's so many people. So we'll have a team backstage. For the main card, I think I'm just going to stay out. Like, there's one fight that I'm not involved in, so I'll just stay out front and just wait for the guys, and the team will warm them up in the back. And, it happens a lot. I'm not here a lot because I'm traveling and doing other things. So the guys that used to being self-sufficient, they don't need me. Right. I like being there. Like, I like being along cage side. By the end of the night, emotionally, I'm done. Like, because I care about the guys so much, and it means so much to me that going 8 times out in one night to fights just fries your nervous system completely. But I want to be with him because I'm so honoured that they would put their health and safety on the line for me and my gym. And I know they do it for themselves, but they carry the team in there with them as well, and they know that. And we're all very proud to be a team. There's no individuals here. So I like, the least I think I can do is stand cage-side and be there to be hands-on for support. And outside of all that, these are my friends. Like, my relationship with my guys is brotherhood. Like, we are equals and we are brothers. And when my brothers go to war, if I can't be right next to them throwing punches, I want to be as close as I can be to help them and be a moral support. And yeah, it's gonna be a hectic night, but that's what I do this shit for, man.
All right. Well, I mean, before we wrap it up, if anyone is going, hey, what's Eternal MMA 85? Like, why should I watch? What's the card? What's the moment? What do you explain? You bump at the pub, to someone at the pub, and that's my friend, this is Ben, he runs Eternal. We've got a show on the weekend. What do you say?
Well, if you like a good night out for a start and you're in Perth, you should come. It's a very friendly, educated, intimate crowd. The music, we work really hard on the music, we work really hard on the cadence of the event, so there's not too much waiting around. It's a nice flowing evening, there's good vibes. always good fights. Like the card top to bottom from amateur through to the main event is talented. We've got guys coming in to fight our amateurs from Adelaide. We've got people coming from all over the world on the main card. If you like sport and you like entertainment and you like a good time, and you don't know much about MMA, come along, because we get a lot of people now that aren't dyed-in-the-wool MMA fans. They just like a good night out. And we start at 2:30 in the afternoon and we're normally done by 9. So we're not monopolising your whole day. If you still want to kick on and have a night out, or you want to go home and be functional the next day, everything's designed for people to have a great time, for there to be no dramas, and for everyone to be able to leave and get home at a reasonable hour, or leave, and we're not monopolising and taking your whole Saturday away from you. So that's what the show is. And for those of you that aren't in Perth, the card, I mean, you can speak to the card, but it's up there with one of the best cards we've ever put on. 2 title fights, the bantamweight and flyweight titles on the line. Jack Becker is one of the best lightweights this country's ever had on his comeback trail, still trying to put all the pieces together since his injury, that devastating injury, snapped his fucking leg in half. How he's even back fighting is phenomenal. So, he's back on there with a top-level international opponent that, this is the stepping stone he needs to get his confidence back and really make his push towards the lightweight title in the UFC, which is where we believe that Jake Becker belongs. But just top to bottom, just high-level, well-matched fights. Kevin Cophamel versus Joe Davis. Kevin's one of the most exciting. We haven't seen him for a while. He got injured. He's one of the most exciting young fighters coming through the Australian featherweight division at the moment. He's fighting a guy from Sydney out of a very good gym, one of George Mangos' teammates.
So you coming over?
I don't know. So you've got that fight, then Khan Deata will open the card. Anytime there's a UFC Fight Pass card, unless he's fighting in the main event, Khan will always open the show because
he's the vet. He's
former Thai boxer. There's 30-odd Thai fights. Knockout guy just comes to fight.
His last knockout with the elbow, it was brutal.
Just a perfect way to start the evening off, right? So Khan will set the bar from the Fight Pass portion.
Jeez. It's going to be a hell of a night. I will see you there.
You will, mate. Just like old times.
The ban is lifted.
There's never a ban, mate.
Benny, it's been an absolute pleasure. Have you on. Don't be a stranger.
No, let's do it more often. You've got to get Cam on.
Talk to him. I'm trying to make it happen.
Cheers, mate.
Yes.